Welcome to another episode of History of the Popes, where we trace the footsteps of those who bore the mantle of Peter, their lives a mosaic of faith, struggle and grace in the Church's unfolding drama. Today, we turn to Pope Stephen I, the 23rd successor of St. Peter, whose pontificate from 254 to 257 marks a pivotal moment in the 3rd century Church. Stephen's brief reign, set against the backdrop of persecution and theological controversy, reveals a leader grappling with questions of unity, authority, and the boundaries of Christian identity. His story, though veiled by the sparseness of early records, speaks to the Church's resilience and its call to be a universal communion, even in an empire bent on its destruction. Let us transport ourselves to Rome in May 254. The Church is a battered yet defiant community, scarred by the Dacian persecution of 250 and the ongoing harassment under Emperor Valerian, who ascends in 253 with a tolerance that will soon sour. Pope Lucius I, Stephen's predecessor, has just died, likely a martyr, after a pontificate of mere months, exiled and perhaps broken by the rigours of imperial hostility. The Roman See, a perilous seat, has been vacant only briefly when the clergy and faithful elect Stephen, on May 12, 254. His name, from the Greek Stephanos, meaning crown, evokes the martyr's reward, a fitting omen for a man whose leadership will be tested by both external and internal storms. The Liber Pontificalis, our 6th century guide to papal lives, offers scant details. A Roman by birth, likely born around 200, a priest of the city's clergy, steeped in its traditions. Cyprian of Carthage, that tireless bishop whose letters are a lifeline to this era, speaks of Stephen with respect but also frustration, as we shall see. Stephen inherits a church still healing from the wounds of Decius's edict, which forced many Christians to apostatize or flee. The schism of Novatian, the rigorist anti-pope who rejected mercy for the lapsi, those who lapsed under persecution, continues to fester, challenging the Church's unity. Yet Stephen's pontificate is defined not only by this lingering division but by a new controversy, one that ripples across the Mediterranean, the question of baptism and the boundaries of the Christian community. The issue arises from a pastoral crisis. In North Africa and Asia Minor, some Christians baptized by heretics or schismatics, those outside the Orthodox Church, seek to join the Catholic fold. The practice in Carthage, under Cyprian, and in parts of the East, is to rebaptize these converts, viewing their prior baptism as invalid, tainted by the error of those who administered it. Rome, however, holds a different tradition, rooted in its apostolic heritage, a baptism performed with water, and the Trinitarian formula, even by heretics, is valid, requiring only the laying on of hands for reconciliation. Stephen, as Bishop of Rome, defends this position with vigour, arguing that the efficacy of baptism lies in Christ's grace, not the worthiness of the minister. To rebaptize, he contends, is to undermine the sacrament's objective power, a stance later echoed by Augustine and enshrined in Catholic theology. Cyprian, a towering figure in Carthage, disagrees sharply. In a series of letters preserved in his corpus, he argues that baptism outside the Church lacks the Spirit's sanctifying presence. He convened synods in Carthage in 255 and 256, attended by dozens of African bishops, which affirm rebaptism as necessary. The dispute escalates, and Stephen responds with a letter, quoted by Cyprian, that asserts Rome's authority, invoking Peter's primacy to settle the matter. Some sources, like the later historian Firmilian of Caesarea, claim Stephen threatened to excommunicate those who rebaptized, though the evidence is debated. Cyprian, while respectful of Rome, resists, emphasizing the collegiality of bishops, each sovereign in his own see. This clash, often called the baptismal controversy, is less about theology alone and more about authority. How is the Church to remain one when practices diverge? Stephen's stance is not mere stubbornness. He sees Rome as a guardian of tradition, a centre of communion linking far-flung Christian communities. His appeal to Peter's chair, perhaps the earliest explicit claim of papal primacy in the sources, marks a step in the papacy's evolving self-understanding. Yet it is not the imperial primacy of later centuries. Stephen's Rome is a city of catacombs, not cathedrals, its bishop a target rather than a potentate. Cyprian's resistance, meanwhile, reflects the 3rd century's fluid ecclesiology, where bishops like those in Carthage or Alexandria wielded significant autonomy. The dispute remains unresolved at Stephen's death, a reminder that unity is a pilgrimage, not a possession. Beyond the controversy, Stephen continues the work of his predecessors. The Liber Pontificalis credits him with ordaining priests and deacons, sustaining the diaconia, those charitable outposts that fed the poor and buried the martyrs. He likely oversaw the veneration of relics in the catacomb of Calixtus, where his predecessors rest, their epitaphs a silent litany of sacrifice. But his pontificate is cut short by persecution's return. In 257, Valerian, reversing his earlier leniency, issues an edict targeting Christian clergy, demanding they sacrifice to the gods or face exile or death. Tradition holds that Stephen is arrested and beheaded on August 2nd, 257, while presiding at the altar, his blood mingling with the Eucharist. The Liber Pontificalis and later martyrologies hail him as a martyr, though some modern scholars, noting the absence of his name in early calendars, suggest he may have died in exile. His epitaph in the catacomb of Calixtus, uncovered by Giovanni Battista de Rossi, reads Stephanus Episcopus, its simplicity belying the weight of his witness. What does Stephen teach us? His pontificate, spanning just 3 years, is a meditation on the tension between unity and diversity. In our own time, when the Church grapples with cultural and theological divides, Stephen's insistence on the validity of baptism reminds us that grace transcends human error, binding us to Christ across imperfect communities. His clash with Cyprian, though unresolved, underscores the necessity of dialogue, even when agreement eludes. His appeal to Peter's authority, however embryonic, points to Rome's role as a touchstone, not of domination, but of communion, a role that will unfold through centuries of debate and discernment. Stephen's martyrdom, whether by blade or banishment, joins him to the chorus of 3rd century popes, Fabian, Cornelius, Lucius, whose blood watered the Church's roots. In the catacomb of Calixtus, his tomb stands as a testament to a church that endures not by earthly power, but by the Spirit's fidelity. His name, a crown, evokes the reward promised to those who persevere, as Revelation assures, "Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life." As we leave Stephen, we prepare to meet his successor, Sixtus II, who will face the same Valerian persecution with equal courage. Stephen's life, brief, contentious, sacrificial, invites us to reflect on our own call to unity, to stand firm in faith while embracing the wideness of God's mercy. Until next time, when we explore another chapter in this sacred chronicle,